Welcome back to another vid, Friday Brew. Armed with my cup of tea, which no doubt I'll take a few slurps of during the course of the vid. It's still hot, so I'd rather not burn my mouth, to be honest. Might make great viewing, but no, not recommended. So yeah, two things. One, apologies if you can hear a load of noise outside. The neighbours directly opposite are having some tree work done. And yeah, people cutting down trees right, left and centre. It's just ridiculous, or branches, I should say, of this massive tree outside the house. So, if you can hear it, apologies, although they should be doing the apologising, quite frankly. So right now, anyway, at this moment in time, it's gone a little bit quiet, but honestly, 20 minutes ago, half an hour ago, it was what a racket. It was ridiculous. But there we are. So yeah, Friday Brew. Now, this is on a Friday. I'm doing it on a Friday, but by the time it's uploaded, it probably still will be Friday, California time. But everybody else watching this, which is predominantly in the UK, then it will be Saturday or Sunday or whenever else for that matter, whenever you're watching it. If you're kind enough to watch it and enjoy it, which is the idea, obviously. I hope you do enjoy them. So, yeah, I've got a list of topics as ever, and as ever, there's a timestamp should you wish to skip to any of the topics that I'm going to bring up. But obviously you're not going to need that because you love listening to every word that I come out with, maybe not. So yeah, very briefly, I want to talk about the California fires. Now, I don't know if this has made the news in the UK. I'm sure it has a little bit. But yeah, it's pretty widespread, really. Now, firstly, it's important to point out, because you're all wondering, obviously, is it anywhere near me? No, it isn't. It's nowhere near me. What you've got to remember is California is massive. The state of California, from top to bottom, is bigger than the UK. So it's a big state, and obviously there's a width as well as the length to take into consideration. Sounds a bit dodgy, doesn't it? So yeah, it's a massive state, and it's nowhere near me. But that said, the other night, I'm trying to think when it was, maybe a couple of days back, and I can't remember what happened. Maybe I went to take the bins out or put something in the bin. I'm not sure. But I went outside, and as soon as I opened the front door and stood on the porch, the amount of smoke that I could smell, it was insane, and it was really strong. Like the scent of it, it wasn't as if, the fires were hours away. It was as if it was almost near, relatively speaking. And I said to my wife, well, that's a little bit concerning. It wasn't just a slight kind of whiff of it. It was full on, as if you were almost at a bonfire. It was really, really strong. And yeah, like I said, I said to my wife, that doesn't seem normal, does it? But I guess with all the winds pushing it across the state, but it's just the frequency with which is happening at the moment, it just seems a little bit out of the ordinary. So I don't know if it's something, I know it sounds a bit ridiculous, or maybe not, but I don't know if it's anything to do with a global warming. I don't know if it's anything to do with a load of pyromaniacs going around. Can you hear that outside? That is so loud, it's ridiculous. I don't know if it's, maybe you can't hear it, but I don't know if it's a lot of pyromaniacs going around, getting a kick out of setting things on fire. You always get that, unfortunately. Is there an element of that? Or is it just one of those things? Maybe it's just the heat of the weather, the sun, and that combining with trees and branches, and maybe it's causing more fires, more than ever. I'm not entirely sure. Next subject I want to talk about, and quite briefly, because not everyone's into their football, but I think this is quite a poignant one. And it was last night or the night before, and England played America, which is relevant to me, of course, on two factors there. And but the big deal about it, all right, it was just a friendly. England won 3-0, of course. It was just a friendly. But a big deal was made about it because it was Wayne Rooney's 120th and final cap. And a lot of people have been in the media, a lot. Ex-professionals and just normal fans on Twitter being very critical about this. Why are they being critical, you may say? Well, he hasn't played for 2 years for England. But it was kind of like a celebrational friendly. A way for the FA to invite him back to Wembley, to put on an England shirt for the last time. He knows it, his teammates know it, the fans know it. He's never going to play for England again. It's a way of saying thank you, really. A celebration friendly. And this has been done around the world, in various games. Some official games, some unofficial games. Roberto Baggio, I think, had it done for him for Italy. And Maradona had it done in Argentina. Podolski, funnily enough, against England. That was for Germany just last year or the year before, whenever that was. So I don't see the problem, to be honest. But a lot of ex-players have come out and they've been vehemently against it. Peter Shilton, who's the record cap holder, and I remember him from my youth, and he's been very vocal against it, to the point where he actually sounds quite bitter. But the more I think about it, It's a one-off. You know, he's the record goal scorer for England. Let's not forget that. So it's not just any old random player. It's someone who achieved something. And yeah, he's never going to play again for England. All the money, or at least all the profits, went to his Wayne Rooney Foundation. I can't remember quite what it is. It's to do with kids and parents, to give them a break. So it's a good charity. And I think all in all it's good. So I've kind of slightly changed my mind, I've got to be honest. I mean, will it happen a lot? I don't think so. I just think it'll happen for every now and again, every once in a generation maybe, when you get a player who has achieved something, most appearances, most top goal scorer, something of note, something which is kind of very poignant. So I think the likes of Peter Shilton, Stuart Pearce, Andy Townsend, et al., they should all relax a little bit, I think, and just bear in mind that this is not going to happen all the time. It's not going to happen for every single player. So all in all, I've got to be honest, I do think it's a good thing. Last thing I'll say about the game is I'm really pleased to see a Bournemouth player. Obviously, Bournemouth is a town that I moved down to when I was a kid, so it's a club I follow quite closely, really. And Callum Wilson on his debut, scoring for England. The first Bournemouth player, I think, ever to start for England and to score on his debut as well. It's just unbelievable. So the last topic I want to talk about in terms of general subjects before I move on to the normal stuff, and this will be brief, it's diet and healthy eating. Oh, man alive. Every single time I make one of these vids, and I've said it numerous times on my channel, on videos over the years, and I've always said, right, that's it. I'm cutting out junk food. I've got the exercise bike. I'm going to go on that, and I'm going to go for more walks and maybe a little bit, a run here and there, and just generally watch what I eat. Cut out the rubbish, eat more fruit and veg, salads, drink more water, and I always start off really good, and the intentions are fantastic. But I always fall off the wagon, or the exercise bike, if you like, always. And it's just ridiculous. Just the sight of a bar of chocolate, and I'm honestly, that's me gone. My legs have gone, and I'm crawling across to get it, and I'm ramming it down my neck. I'm greedy, and it doesn't just stop there. It doesn't just stop at one bloody bar of chocolate. I'll have 2 or 3. I can't just eat one bag of crisps, or if I do, then I can't just have a small bag. It's got to be a family pack. I bought a packet of these biscuits. I think they're called Pims or Prims. I can't remember. I think it's Pims. And they're imported, but they're at the local Safeway. And I don't know where they're from, the UK or wherever for that matter. They're kind of like a cheap version, although the packaging kind of makes it look as if they're more expensive version, but they're not. They're like a cheaper version of Jaffa cakes. So like orange kind of coated chocolate biscuit. And I bought a packet the other day. And honestly, you probably get maybe, like a dozen in there? I'm not even joking. I think within 20 minutes, they were gone. I was watching like one YouTube vid, not even got through one YouTube vid, and I had my cup of tea at hand, and just one after the other, just shoving them in, and then the whole packet had gone. To the point where you kind of reach across to take another, and then you're fumbling around with like the wrapping, you're like, was that it? I've eaten them, Jesus. I'm just a greedy bugger. So I've really got to get sorted, and particularly as well, and this sounds so vain, but we have some family coming over at Christmas, which leaves me about a month and a half. And I really do want to lose a little bit of weight. I wouldn't go as far as saying a stone in a month and a half, that's not going to happen, but maybe about 10 pounds. I really want to do it. I feel I need to do it. It is vanity, but I don't want them to turn up, having not seen them for years, and to think, bloody hell, you've put on a bit of weight. So a bit of, chubby chops, chubby belly, bit of moob action going on, which is a disgrace. It really is. I need a sip. There we go. Can't be having moobs and a pot belly. It just can't be happening. So, it is happening. I've got to get rid of it. It's just ridiculous. So that's the plan. That's the plan. Not now. I mean, we've got some junk food left over. So maybe as of tomorrow, as of Monday. See, this is the problem. I can't stop eating rubbish. But as of Monday, maybe Sunday, that's it. I'm going to start eating more healthy stuff, a lot more salad or salads, drink more water, fruit and veg, and making homemade soup, cutting out the salt, or as much as possible. You need a little bit to add flavour. And yeah, I really need to. And on top of that, do a little bit more exercise. So what I was planning on doing is for these vlogs, maybe having like a little segment where I could put the scale measurements so you can see how much I weigh. Honestly, it's vanity, isn't it? And pointless. But then I thought, well, that could be humiliation. an extra humiliation if I stand on the scales and then you see it, and then I go on it 2 weeks later or a month later, and I've not lost weight, or maybe put on weight. How embarrassing to have that on a vid. But on the flip side, it could maybe encourage me to do it. So I'm not sure. We'll see. But I think it just comes down to, dedication, doesn't it, really? And ignoring temptation, and just having a bit of steel about you, and a bit of, just being resolute, I think. Maybe I should do that. So we'll see. Maybe more of that next time I talk about just general stuff which is going on. The next vlog, perhaps, I'll give you an update. But if I don't talk about it, then just presume I'm back on the crisps and the chocolates and just being greedy, as per usual. Right, moving on to what I've been watching. So, recently I've been watching this. Let me get my little prop. Teenage Mutant Hero or Ninja. Let's refer to it as Ninja because we're in America. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This is the trilogy, which you'll see there, and maybe I'll just put a close-up. And there's the back with nothing on there, quite frankly. So yeah, basically there's 3 CDs. The movie, a movie, is on each one of them. So this is the first time I've seen Turtles since pretty much it came out, which is a common kind of theme these days. Whenever I do these vlogs, whenever I've been watching a movie, I'm always watching it back for the first time since I saw it originally. I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm just having that nostalgic hit. I'm watching a lot of movies from the late 80s and the early mid-90s. I'm really enjoying them. And yeah, in many cases, in almost all cases, at least so far, I'm watching them back for the first time since I originally watched them back in the day. So yeah, I don't think I've ever seen the third one. I mean, that looks ridiculous, that front cover there. I've not seen that. Apparently it's meant to be rubbish, but I do want to watch it and I will. The second one I did see as a kid, and the first one, well, I definitely saw that. I think I saw it in the cinema. So, yeah, the first one came out in 1990, the second one in 91, and the third one in 93. Now, if this third one had come out, say, like 10, 15 years later, I probably wouldn't have watched it. It would have been almost like akin to the Home Alone situation, where you had 1 and 2, which are great. I even think 2 is really, really good. The first one's a classic, of course, nowhere near as good as the second, but I do like the second. But then you had Home Alone 3, which came out like 5, 10 years later, but it's nothing to do really with the original movies. Not got the original actors and all that kind of stuff in, so I'm not interested whatsoever. But because this came out, the third one, within the same kind of time period, like I say, 1990, 91 and 93, then for me, it's still watchable, even if it's meant to be rubbish. So I will give it a watch, and maybe on subsequent brews and vlogs I'll talk about it. But yeah, so what do I think of the first one? So, yeah, 1990 it came out. So let me give you a little bit of a brief premise. I'm not going to go into too much detail, because I butchered the Demolition Man kind of review, if you want, or glossing over. So, very, very, very basic premise. So you've got April O'Neil, who's the journalist in New York, and she's kind of on the verge of exposing the Foot Clan, which is like, headed by Shredder, or the Shredder, as he's referred to a lot in the movie. As a kid, we always just called him Shredder, not the Shredder, but maybe, I'm not suggesting it's the Mandela effect, obviously not, it's a load of bollocks. Maybe we just dropped the and just called him Shredder. So anyway, she's on the verge of exposing them, because this gang are of kids, essentially. Kids who feel a bit disillusioned, they're not loved, or they don't feel loved, or they're told they're not loved by Shredder and crew, or his crew. And because they've got this kind of crime syndicate going. And so all these kids are then working essentially for Shredder, nicking stuff, taking TVs, and then they've got this hideout, which is like one giant big bloody youth club with arcade machines. The game Narc, if anyone remembers that, is featured on the game. And kids skateboarding and betting and drinking and smoking, all that kind of stuff. Typical kind of teenage stuff. And so all these kids are doing that. And obviously they're making a nice little profit for themselves. And April O'Neil, doesn't like it because she's like an upstanding member of society, even though she's a journalist. And so she's on the verge of exposing Shredder and the Foot Clan. Shredder doesn't like this, of course, so he sets out to silence April O'Neil. So essentially, fast forward a little bit, and they corner her, basically, the Foot Clan, with like their masks on and stuff. They corner her and they knock her out. They beat her up, essentially, or give her one whack at least. So she's unconscious. But then rather than them, I should say, take her away and kidnap her, Raphael appears on the scene. Now, he'd been following April O'Neil down to the subway where this kind of incident happened, like a deserted subway. And so they knock out, they make April O'Neil unconscious, and then Raphael beats them up, the Foot Clan, He picks up April, takes her back through the subway, through the sewers, where of course the Turtles and Splinter live, and he's rescuing her essentially, and they're going to bring her back. And she's not dead; she's just unconscious. They're going to nurse her back to full health and all that kind of stuff. But unbeknowingly to Raphael, one of the Foot Clan, one of the remaining members, sees Raphael taking April O'Neil through the sewers, and he follows them. So straight away, unbeknown, like I say, to Raphael, he gives away their hideout, their base, their home. And so now the Foot Clan essentially know where they live, where the Turtles live, and where April is, really, as well. So, basically, the Turtles then go to April's house. They take her back there because she's kind of recovered at this point. And when they return back, Splinter's been captured because, like I say, they knew where he was. So that's basically what happens. Ultimately, the Turtles then set out to save the day and to get back their Master Splinter. So along the way, they meet Casey Jones. This is quite early on. Casey Jones is kind of like sort of a vigilante, almost like bounty hunter, Harrison Ford character. So he's a good guy, but he's not happy, or he is happy, I should say, to take the money or to beat anyone up, really, if it means him benefiting from it. I'm all over the place with the stuttering today. So, so he's a kind of an interesting character. And I used to really like him, when I was a kid. I used to love the Turtles just in general, because it was my kind of age group. Because when this movie came out, I was 11, or about to turn 12. So it was my kind of thing. I really loved it. Loved all the toys and all that kind of stuff. More of that in a second, if I remember. And so you meet Casey Jones, and he gets on the side, obviously, of April and the Turtles. And then there's a kid called Danny, I think. And April O'Neil's boss, who works, obviously, for the newspaper. This Danny is the boss's son. And he gets involved with the Foot Clan, and he tells them again where the Turtles are, tells Shredder. So he's kind of like a spy. He's a good kid, really. He's just lost his way, like many kids. And the appeal, I guess, of working for Shredder and just hanging out with all these other kids and, smoking, drinking, free money, stealing, a life of crime, but at the same time a life of luxury, it really appeals to him. But he comes good in the end, of course he does. So it's a typical kind of heartwarming, in a way, yet typical action stroke comedy movie. But I will say that there's a couple of moments. Oh, before I do, let me just say that the costumes, in terms of the outfits, it looks really, really good. Now, I was a bit concerned, a little bit worried that it would look dated, that it would look really, really bad, because remember, obviously, it came out in 1990, but it really does look impressive, even now. Now, all the character costumes and the models and the puppets are all done by Jim Henson, so there's like quite a high benchmark there anyway. And I think it was Jim Henson's last project that he worked on before he passed away, which is, of course, very sad. Stan Lee as well, that was another sad passing, wasn't it, of late? Maybe more of that in another vid. But yeah, that was quite sad. I was 95, I think, so a good innings, as we all say. But yeah, so I thought the costumes look really, really good. The only thing I will say is that where the mouth is and the teeth, it didn't look particularly convincing. But apart from that, the actual costume, the body, the shell, the way they moved, I thought it did look very, very good and convincing. And I was looking at it, I was studying it, really watching, looking like, am I going to be able to see their arms, their skin, between like joints, the costume? Is there going to be something which is making it really age? But no, I was really convinced. Even now, all these years, nearly 30 years later, it still looks good. In my opinion, at least. So, if you've seen it, it'll be interesting to see what you thought. But yeah, I think it holds up, bizarrely. So, the only thing I thought was a little bit dodgy, but of course it's the realm of the movie. Well, two things actually. It's the realm of the movie world. One, you had a couple of scenes where Raphael was walking through New York City, one at night, and the other one, I think, during the day, and he had like a trench coat on and a hat, but he didn't have any shoes on, so you can see his big turtle feet, and of course his turtle face. And no one really seemed to say anything as he's just walking through, mingling with the crowd. And come on, really. A couple of people did kind of have a double take. There was like one scene in particular. But how can you not see it's a bloody turtle walking around in a trench coat? But that aside, it's just a movie, of course. But the biggest thing which made the film age badly, and it's just a couple of segments, and it was so bad that it was actually comical. And the first one was when April O'Neil is recuperating, like I say, in the sewers, in the Turtles and Splinter's house. You get this situation where she's kind of, like I say, coming back to full health, and Splinter's explaining who they are, because he's a talking rat for goodness sake. You know, it's like man size, is that, you know, 5 foot, 6 foot, whatever he is. And which obviously isn't normal, as well as teenage turtles talking and doing all the rest of their human-like stuff. So Splinter's explaining to April how it came about. So basically, of course, as you'll all be aware, I'm sure, there's a radioactive ooze which the turtles were exposed to, which made them grow up and start speaking and all that kind of stuff and grow to being tall. And Splinter himself was also exposed, which is why he went from a very small pet rat to essentially a man-sized talking rat as well. So he's explaining that, but whilst he's explaining it, that's coming on the screen. Like, you can see the graphics and the animation and the puppeteering, and my God, it looks dreadful. It is so awful. It doesn't even look like it's from 1990. It looks like it's from bloody 1890. It's terrible. It's aged badly. So there's that bit. And then there's a second segment later on in the movie where Splinter, I think, is talking to Danny, the kid, he's the good kid who turns a little bit bad but then gets good again. And yeah, that scene is explaining how Splinter's master, who was a human, how he got into a fight with who ultimately is Shredder. But at the time, Splinter was just a pet rat kept in a cage. So he was talking about his master and how he was observing him because he had nothing better to do. He was in a cage. So he was observing him all this time, and then it cuts to like his master, the kung fu martial arts guy, doing all these like, you know, kung fu moves basically. And then it would cut immediately to Splinter in his cell as a pet rat doing all the martial arts moves, like mimicking all the moves, like the kicking and the punching, and it just looked ridiculous. It was so bad, but I laughed. I wasn't meant to laugh. They didn't put it on there for people to laugh, but it's aged badly. But that aside, I thought it was pretty good. It's a little bit cheesy, of course it is, but I really liked it. And once again, it reminded me of a time in movies, the late 80s, or the 80s in general, the early 90s, where it just seems, and maybe it's rose-tinted glasses, it could well be, and being blinkered by nostalgia, but it just seemed like, I don't know, an era where people were happy to take risks, they didn't care, it was just a bit of fun, it's just a movie, don't take life so seriously, or at least when it doesn't need to be taken seriously. And that's what these movies, or at least the first one, really reminds me of. So yeah, it helps that it's from my childhood, the Turtles were a massive kind of part of it, and but I really like it. I've got to be honest, I feel a bit stupid giving things ratings out of 5 and 10, but I will anyway. I'll give it a 4 out of 5. I really like it. So I'm looking forward to watching the second, and we'll see what I think of that all these years later. And then just quickly, I mentioned it a few minutes ago, yeah, it's really got me back into looking. I'm just looking. I don't know what the hell I'd do with them if I bought them, but I have been looking on eBay at the original, of course, Turtle toys from the late 80s and the early 90s. I remember really wanting April O'Neil's van. I think it was like a yellow van, a bright yellow van. I really wanted that. I didn't get it. I had a few of the Turtles. I probably had them all, actually. So I've been looking on eBay. But what would I do with them? That was a question I had on a vlog a few vlogs back. And people asked, I can't remember who it was, apologies. But do I have any old toys, or do I want to buy any? You know, and I just said, well, it kind of appeals in terms of nostalgia. But what would I do with them? I'm not going to play with them. And I've not really got anywhere to put them. Let's put them on these shelves. I don't know. It might be a bit ridiculous. And it might lead me to buying everything else, like He-Man, Star Wars, Mask, Thundercats, Transformers, and the list would go on. And I don't know. Never say never. I'm just going through a phase right now, since last night, since watching it, where I'm obsessed with the Turtles. I'm loving it. I really am. Okay, so moving on to what I've been listening to recently, and it's this one. It's the Beatles. It's the White Album. You can't get much whiter than that. You can't see anything. There's not even a track list on the back. So yeah, the Beatles, the White Album, came out in 1968, and it will be 50 years to the day on the 22nd of November. So yeah, almost 50 years to the day, which is just absolutely astonishing. Like I said, the album is completely blank. There's a little bit of embossed wordage here, which says the Beatles, but you probably can't even see that. Probably because of the glare, I'm not sure. But yeah, completely blank on the back, no track list. But I do have the track list brought up on a screen here for me to look at, because I'm going to go through a few of the tracks. Not too many. But what I love about this album is it came out in 1968, which is obviously right towards the end of the Beatles' career. And the Beatles, I'm not going to win any awards for saying this, but it's probably, or they are probably, the best band of all time. Not just in terms of their music, which still stands the test of time, but also the way they their cultural relevance, I think. The importance, they were the first in so many ways to do so many things. They incorporated so much into their music and their lifestyles as well. Spirituality as well, which is reflective in their music, not just on this album, but on others, of course. And even though they weren't around that long, they encompass so many different styles. To go from the very start, which was essentially like a boy band, really, with a very tinny kind of sound. I do like it, don't get me wrong, I Want to Hold Your Hand and all that kind of stuff. It sounds good, it's catchy, I like it, but I don't like it anywhere near as much as I like their mid to latter career stuff. It's a little bit too clean cut, and it's aged a little bit, although it is very kind of, still, and always will be very catchy. But to go from that all the way through to even their styles, the way they look with the beards and the long hair, and the peace protests with John Lennon, and like I say, the spirituality, where they're chilling out in India and all that kind of stuff, whilst recording this album as well, I think. It's just an amazing band who achieved so much in such a short space of time, because by 1970 they'd finished. I think technically they quit as a band in 1969, or was it 69? I think they quit in 69, even though the last album was 1970, and by the time it was released it was 70. But even if you want to throw in 1970 to maybe when they officially actually quit, it's still not a long time. When was their first album? 62, 63? So it's astonishing, really. It's just unbelievable. And this album I really love, because what it is, it's kind of an amalgamation of every single style. You've got stuff like Back in the USSR, which has got elements, like the chorus, of the Beach Boys, with the harmonies and surfer kind of music. The Beach Boys obviously being massive in my neck of the woods back in the day, in California. Never really translated, did it, to the UK? I'm not saying nobody liked the Beach Boys, but it never really took off. Maybe it was too American, too Californian, perhaps. Then you got things like Dear Prudence, which is a brilliant song, covered by many bands over the years, like Sushi and the Banshees being one of them. That was a really good single. I think they released in the mid to late 80s. Clearly a cover version, like I say, of the Beatles. Glass Onion, Obladi Oblada. What kind of song is that? It couldn't fit anywhere else other than this album, really. While My Guitar Gently Weeps, brilliant song, fantastic chorus. What else is there? Martha, My Dear, I'm So Tired. Blackbird is a lovely song. Piggies is a little bit of a weird one. Rocky Raccoon, where Paul McCartney does his kind of American sort of country voice, if you like, country and western voice, which is interesting to say the least. I Will, Julia, really good kind of, McCartney, Lennon numbers again. Birthday. Now, Birthday is an interesting one, because the chorus leads into what sounds like it could be a Sex Pistols song. Not even joking. It's got kind of that Anarchy in the UK kind of sound to it. It just sounds like Johnny Rotten's about to explode into the vocals. Everybody's Got Something to Hide Except Me and My Monkey. What an amazing title. So, really catchy song, Sexy Sadie. Helter Skelter, which still sounds so fresh. It really does. A lot of people cite that as the very first kind of heavy metal song. And you listen to it all these years later, and the power and the energy, the raw kind of vocals of Paul McCartney really gets into it. And it still sounds really fresh, for the most part. It's a brilliant song. What else is there? Revolution 1, Honey Pie, Savoy Truffle, Cry Baby Cry, even something like Good Night is a really good song as well, encompassing all kinds of different styles, those latter songs I just said there. Good Night is almost like slightly operatic, or something you'd see on a movie. A song I mentioned a minute ago, Honey Pie, it's like ragtime music, so something you'd expect from like the war, like black and white and the tiaras and all that kind of stuff, and jazz elements to it. So it's got rock, it's got pop, it's got surfer kind of music, ragtime, like I say, blues, a song called Your Blues, which is oddly enough a bluesy kind of number. It's just a brilliant album. And most people love it, of course. It's got a great reputation. Yet also, at the same time, a lot of people have never taken too kindly to it. And I think the reason is because it is a mismatch. It's like whatever you like, pretty much, that kind of song, that genre, is catered for on the album. And I think maybe for some people it throws them. They want to know what it is they're listening to. Whereas every track that comes on, you don't really know what you're going to get. But for me, I love that eclecticism. I really like that. Now, moving on to what I've been playing. So I'm going to talk briefly about 3 games. One of them is Tetris Effect on the PlayStation 4. Now, you'll probably know by now, this is an exclusive, but I tend to download most of my PS4 games these days, and Tetris Effect is no exception. So I've downloaded it. I really like it. It's probably the best Tetris game yet, which I did say on a tweet the other day. And have a quick sip. Yeah, and I was really pleased actually. Again, it sounds a little bit vain, but let's face it, this is why we all do Twitter. It's because we hope maybe like celebrities and people kind of like it when we tag them. We don't put our tweets out so they will like it, but it's nice if they do. Let's phrase it that way. And the director of the game, I forgot the guy's bloody name, but the director kind of liked the tweet. Which, how cool is that? The person who made the game liked it, so that was good. But in the very same tweet, and I'll maybe put it on the screen for you to see, I did say that it gave me a migraine because I played it for like 2-3 hours straight, and as soon as I stood up, it was like I felt like I could have fallen over because I'm focusing so much and a lot of things moving on the screen and the music. It's very kind of hypnotic, and yeah, I've got to be honest. And that wasn't even in VR, so that could really kind of screw with your mind if you play it in VR. As astonishing and brilliant as I'm sure it is, maybe one day I'll get VR, but I've not yet had an interest to do it, bizarrely. Maybe I think what puts me off is like the scary games in VR. And you'll probably say, well, Alex, just don't play the scary games. But me being me, I'll want to play them even though I don't want to. This is ridiculous, isn't it? Kind of strange logic. But yeah, so I'd say it is the best Tetris game yet. Now, every time a Tetris game comes out, and this has always been the way since the 360, the PS3, the Xbox One, and of course the PS4, there's been several different iterations have come out. And every time one does, I always buy it, either physically or digitally. I just love the game. It's arguably the best game of all time, Tetris. I absolutely love it. So, yeah, it's brilliant. It's probably the best one, like I say, ever. The music's fantastic. It's very chilled out, very relaxed. Maybe a little bit too easy, I'd say. There's quite a few game modes, but maybe there should be more. I'm a little bit slightly disappointed that there aren't that many. There's enough to get you going, but once you've done them, it's like, you want more. You really do. And what I've noticed as well so far, unless I've missed it, and I don't think I have, but it appears as if, unless it's going to be added as DLC or free content or whatever, but it appears as if you can't just have a traditional game of Tetris, i.e. just start a game and keep going and going and going and get like, 1 million points or 2 million or 10 million or whatever it may be. It appears like you can't do that. Every single game mode is it's got a cut-off, like clear 50 lines, clear 150 lines, before you move on to the next stage. So it's all over with very quickly. And that is disappointing. I don't know if you can unlock something. I mean, I've been playing it for a few hours now, and it just appears as if they've kind of scaled it back. And that, like I say, I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit disappointed, although it still is, I think, the best Tetris game ever produced, as I say. But I'd like to see if they're going to do DLC, free or paid or whatever it may be. I'd like to see more game modes introduced, including that typical one, like I say, where you could just play for as long as you want until you kind of screw up, basically. But whether we're going to see that or not remains to be seen. It's just a strange omission. It's really weird. It's one of the basics of Tetris. But I'm really liking it. There's avatars and stuff to unlock, which big deal. It's just aesthetics, isn't it? You don't need it. But they're kind of cool, like kind of holographic kind of images. They look pretty good. And so it's a really good game. I will say, though, that it's steep in price. It cost me $40. The doubly annoying thing about that is I knew I was going to be downloading it. And about a week or two before it came out, every day it was like highlighted on the PlayStation Network. If you download this now as a PlayStation Plus member, you can save $5. And $5, big deal, but nonetheless $5. And every day I kept saying, right, I'm gonna pre-order. I'm gonna pre-order the download and get it ready, for the day, like I did with Red Dead Redemption 2. And I kept forgetting about it. And before you know it, the game's come out, and I did download it the day it came out. But of course, by that time, the pre-order bonus had gone, so I just pissed away $5. Thank goodness it was only $5. But talk about stupid. Again, lazy, just like dieting and healthy eating. Lazy. I need to improve. That's maybe one of my resolutions for 2019 onwards. But yeah. Next up, I want to talk about very, very briefly is Time Slip on the Super Nintendo. Yeah, this is a game I picked up ages ago. The best way of looking at this is a basic, how can I say? Like a cheap version of Super Probotector or Contra 3, essentially. So a side-scrolling, run-and-gun, platform element game. It looks decent, but it doesn't look great. it's like kind of a slightly cheaper version of Probotector Contra, like I say. But ultimately, it's still pretty good. What I will say as well is it's quite hard to get. Not many copies tend to come up on auction, but when it does come up, it doesn't yield crazy prices. You can get it for really cheap, like 20, 25 quid. Depending on condition, I guess, maybe it might go for a little bit more. This is kind of average condition, to be honest. Although you probably couldn't tell because it's in one of these box protectors. So yeah, I do like it. It's cheap, it's cheerful. There's a level which I'm on at the moment where it's like kind of, you're on this like hover bike. I was going to say a jet ski. It's definitely not a jet ski. You're on this hover bike and you control it. It's going like vertically. And you've got the vertically, horizontally. And you've got the left to right, basically. And you've got these enemies that are coming from the left and from the right, and you can move around, obviously, up, down, left, right, and you've got to control like the guns, like the turrets. And at times it can get a little bit overwhelming, and it's a little bit clunky. But the actual platforming, the running and gunning element to it, I do quite like it. It doesn't do anything which has never been done before, and again, I want to stress, it's nothing compared to Probotector and Contra. Nothing. You know, if you want to play that kind of game, then that is the one to go for. But it's a nice, cheap little alternative, and not many people talk about it. So that's that. And then last but not least, and this is a recent pickup, so this will be on a future pickup vid as well, maybe next week or the week after, or whenever I do it. There's a little bit of damage on the box, which annoyed me, but I'll talk about it more in the next vid. It's for the Commodore Amiga, and it's called Apprentice. And this is another one which is very, very difficult to get. Wait and see, you'll go on eBay now, and there'll be 300 of them, all for £1 each. Buy it now. But no, usually it goes for a fair amount of money, but it's quite uncommon. That, oh bloody hell! Like I say, I'll talk about it in the next vid. That sticker damage really gets on my wick. But nonetheless, it's difficult to find. It's basically a platform game again. One of my favourite kind of genres ever. Not just on the 16-bit machine, just on any system, quite frankly. And yeah, I really like it. There's some really interesting elements to it, where you can pick up the blocks and drop them, and throw them into the enemy, and the enemies can kind of kick them back to you. So it's kind of like a puzzle game. There's lots of hidden levels. It looks very, very basic, but it's decent. It does the job. It came out in 1990 by Rainbow Arts, so a lot of people associate that with Turrican. And yeah, it's very deceptive, because the first kind of few levels are quite easy, and you think, is this it? Really? But it gets really... Yeah, it gets very challenging. It really does. But I like it, and not a lot of people know about it. Okay, so moving on to the questions. Now, as I always say, please don't feel any obligation. Obviously, not many of you do, cheeky buggers. But no, never feel obligated to ask any questions. But if you do have any, then please do. Leave it in the comments description or the comment section, and I'll answer them in a couple of weeks-ish, there or thereabouts. So I've got a few questions, and the first, there's a couple from Damo. Thank you, Damo, for these. Question number 1, thoughts on the PlayStation 1 Classic full game lineup? Yeah, I talked about this, I think, last time, or the time before, but by then, or at that point, only 5 games had been announced, whereas now we have the full list. And I'm looking at it now on an adjacent window, and yeah, there's been a lot of hoo-ha, hasn't it, about this? I think the thing is, you've got to remember 2 things. 1, these mini PlayStations, or mini consoles in general, they're not really aimed at you and I. Not really. They're aimed for very, very casual gamers, people who probably don't collect, maybe people who haven't bought or played a PlayStation game for 20 years or more. It's for very casual gamers, who don't want to go through the whole rigmarole of buying stuff and collecting, like I say. They just want to have a PlayStation there and have a bout of nostalgia. I think that's the market that these things are aimed for. With that in mind, you're not going to please everyone. You're certainly not going to please hardcore collectors who are saying, why isn't this game in there? Why isn't that one in there? I think 2 notable exceptions, which immediately I noticed the lack of. One is Wipeout and the other is Gran Turismo. But I just automatically assumed it's a licensing issue, because they're very heavily featured, or music tracks I should say, are very heavily featured on those games, and maybe they couldn't license them all again. Often what you get for games is that those tracks, they're licensed for a certain amount of years, and when that expires, you've got to go through the whole rigmarole of relicensing it and more money and all the rest of it, and it could cost a fortune. Maybe the prices have gone up. So, you could say, well, just don't put those tracks in, put some new ones in, but then you'll get purists who don't like it. Why didn't they release the original game? It's not the same. It's not nostalgia. So you can't please everyone. So, yeah, listen, I'm looking at the list, like I say, there's some really strange choices. I wouldn't have had Siphon Filter, personally. I wouldn't have had Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six. I wouldn't have chosen something like Intelligent Cube, although it's quite nice actually that it's on there really. It's something a little bit different, and I love those kind of puzzle games. Mr. Driller's another one. I personally wouldn't have picked Ridge Racer Type 4. I'd have absolutely gone with Ridge Racer, but again, fair enough. Twisted Metal I've never really been into. It's kind of like a cult game, isn't it? A lot of people love it. They love the name of it, the imagery of it. It looks really kind of cool and enticing, and like the characters. They did a good job when it came to like marketing it. But for me, I've never really liked the game, or never really gotten into it. Maybe I just need to give it more time, despite all these years passing and still not got into it. But alright, fair enough, we'll go with it then, fine. It's a popular game, but yeah, there's things like Metal Gear Solid, that's a good inclusion. Grand Theft Auto, Final Fantasy VII. I've even heard people saying, what was that on there for? Why didn't they have 8 or 9? Come on, Final Fantasy VII is the most well-known game. It was always going to be on there. Destruction Derby's a good one. Cool Borders 2. Yeah, it's an odd one, in a way, but I don't think the list is that bad. Like I say, number one, it's aimed at a different market, and number two, you're never going to please everyone. I think all in all, I am bucking the trend a little bit here, but I think all in all, I think it's alright. But as I just highlighted, yeah, of course I would have changed a few games, but that's just subjective, isn't it? It really is. Because for all these people coming out who are perfectly entitled to their opinion, who are criticising the list, well, maybe they would give alternatives that you or I would disagree with. It's subjective. I think generally speaking, it's alright. It's not perfect, it's alright. So that's my feelings there, Damo. Question number 2. People are raving about the Spider-Man PS4 game. Any intention to get it? Well, cue pause there. I've got it. I think, did I talk about it? Maybe not. Clearly you didn't see the vid, Damo, if I did do it. Get back and watch it. Watch the... No, I honestly can't even remember whether I talked about it. I think I did on a previous brew. Maybe it was under the segment of what I'm currently playing. But I stand corrected. I can't quite remember. But I get a feeling I may have done. So yeah, I do have it. I just haven't really been playing it lately because as I get older, you know, we all get more responsibilities and different hobbies and different interests, and we devote our time to other kind of things, essentially, that we enjoy. So I've not really spent a great deal of time on it. From what little I have played of it, and I haven't played for weeks, I did really enjoy it. But of course, since then, we've had Red Dead Redemption 2, which I've been playing a fair bit, and Tetris Effect. So that's been taking up my modern gaming. But yeah, I played it a little bit, and I really like it. Again, it comes back to the Stan Lee thing, doesn't it? Did he do Spider-Man? I think he did. Obviously not an expert. So yeah, I will get back into it, and yeah, so I've got it, and I like it. So thank you, Damo. Pete, Snestastic, thank you, Pete, for these 4 questions. 1. I recently saw the new Halloween movie. Well, Pete did. Oh, sorry, I've got to stop doing this. Whenever I refer to, whenever I read out, the word I always have to say so-and-so. I'll stop doing that straight away. I recently saw the new Halloween movie. Horror has always been a genre that I've avoided due to childhood nightmares. Are there any genres or films or games that you've avoided? Whether it's due to horror scares or something else. Yeah, I'm the same, Pete, really. Horror movies, I hate them. But at the same time, I kind of watch them. It's that thing, isn't it? You kind of like being scared. You don't want to be, but you kind of want to be. It comes again back to the VR thing I mentioned earlier on. Resident Evils and that other game I watched Ben Shenmue playing. What the hell do you call that one with the fairground in the background? Can't quite remember what you call it. But yeah, it's they're scary. I don't want to watch them. I'm kind of watching them looking away with kind of hiding behind covering a part of the eye. But still watching it. All I'm doing is covering part of the eye. It's like you can't look away, but you want to look away. You know, it's that kind of thrill, that buzz. It's the fear. It's kind of almost like addictive, isn't it? So, but yeah. But the thing is, what I absolutely, and I've always said this, what I do not like, we're all different, and I know it's just a movie. I don't like gory stuff where it's done just for the sake of it. I actually hate it. I don't like it at all. What I like, I don't mind a little bit. If it's relevant and contextual, that's fine. But if it's done needlessly, not into it whatsoever, and I start to detest it, and I'll just stop watching it, or won't even watch it to begin with. Not into that. But what I am into, big time, is the suspense and the drama and really keeping you on edge. The odd jump scare here and there I don't mind, but nothing which is gory or overly gory. But if it's suspenseful, like you've said about the Halloween movie, I love that. The suspense in that, the original from '78, is amazing. You see a little bit of gore, but nothing too gory at all. That, for me, that movie does it perfectly. it's scary without being too scary. You don't see too much. It's more like what's going on. You don't know, at any moment something could happen. It's the suspense, and I love that. Question number 2. Speaking of the PlayStation Classic, are there any consoles that you would really like to see a mini version of? I mean, I don't think, buy a mini version. I've yet to buy a mini version of any of these systems. Basically, because all the ones that have come out, I've kind of got physically anyway. I have said on vid that if I could mod it to the point of where I could have all the games on it, I would consider it. But other ones that aren't out yet or haven't been announced that I'd look into getting or want to get, I can't think of anything, Pete. Maybe something like an Amiga or an Atari ST one. But it's so pointless because, as you know, and as I've just showed, I like buying the physical games. The Amiga and the ST is it's my childhood, really. As is the SNES, as is the Mega Drive and the 8-bit home computers. But the Amiga and the ST, it's my thing. And I'm always going to want to get the physical games, quite frankly. Even though I don't mind dabbling in a bit of emulation, I still ultimately want the box with instruction and all that kind of stuff. So none that I can think of. Maybe the AES, the Neo Geo, because the games are so bloody expensive. I know you can emulate them and play them on your PC and your Mac and whatever else for that matter. But maybe if there's a Neo Geo came out. In fact, didn't they do one? Didn't they do a Neo Geo a few years ago? Like a pocket version or a mini version where they had some games, and I'm sure they did. I'm not quite certain, I can't really remember. But something like that kind of rings a bell. But if they released one where it had all the games, not just a few, all the games, and you could hack it, and all the really expensive, like £1,000 and dollar games, I may be interested in that, but probably even then I'd probably turn a blind eye. The Neo Geo was a lovely bit of kit. It was almost like this mythological creature when we were kids. Nobody had one, couldn't afford one, obviously. But would I actually play it a great deal? Probably not. Question number 3. Are you ready for next gen, or are you content with the current gen for a few more years? The funny thing about this is when we were getting towards the last generation of systems, I started to kind of have conflicting opinions. When we were coming towards the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. And I'd have talked about it on video, and we probably talked about it as well on Twitter and the like, along with other people. And back then, sort of 2012, 2013, I was in a kind of a conflicting mood because I thought we needed next gen in regards to the games were kind of looking the same. The graphics were being taken as far as they could be taken. They look good, but all the games that were coming out were very similar. And most games are kind of first-person shooters, so they all kind of look the same anyway, with like a fresh lick of paint. It started to become a little bit stale and a little bit boring to me. So I felt I needed it. But at the same time, I wondered whether I would go next gen, i.e. what is now this gen, Xbox One and PlayStation 4. Because I've always maintained, and I still do and always will, that the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360, they reached a point in gaming where I wanted it to be when I was a kid. That, to me, was where it was like, that was what I wanted gaming to be. Me and my friends would always talk about it. We wanted commentary on football games. We wanted open world games where you can get in a car, drive around, go into a house, buy a house, all that kind of stuff, and just walk around the world and live in like this very immersive kind of adventurous kind of universe. And the 360 and the PS3 was the first proper generation where it reached that point where our dreams as kids were kind of fulfilled. Now, obviously, as technology goes on, those worlds get even better. The technology gets better, the graphics get better, the worlds get more immersive, there's more to do and all that kind of stuff. So technically, things are always getting better, which is good. But the last generation kind of got to that point where I was really happy with. That said, the more technology gets better, like I say, and the more it advances, you kind of want a bite of the pie. You see all these really good games coming out and you think, oh, actually, yeah, let's get the PS4, let's get the Xbox One. So despite thinking I might not, obviously you start to see the games coming out, you see the graphics, you see the games, and you think, oh, I've got to get it. And now that they're out, I'm really pleased that I did go next gen, or what is now current gen. So I suspect come the next one, which is probably going to be next year, or the year after, maximum really, it's probably going to be 2020. I suspect that I'll kind of go through those same emotions of going, oh, I think I'm pretty happy with the PlayStation 4. Yet, before you know it, we'll start to see all the games, the graphics, the games will be showcased at all these big events, and we'll see the videos on YouTube. They'll look amazing, and of course, we'll probably end up buying them. Question number 4, what has been the worst comment or reaction that you've received, either on a YouTube vid or social media, Facebook, Twitter, to something you've said? Well, as you can imagine, Pete, for someone who's been making vids quite a long time, I've had a few over the years, a few kind of silly ones, a few stupid ones, a few funny ones, where basically people are just taking the piss. A bit of banter maybe, but sometimes you just think, why even bother? You know, I've seen some offensive comments, not really for me to be fair, but on other people's vids. And you see those people leaving those comments and you're thinking, really? Why are you choosing to say that? Why are you putting your name to that? Everybody can read it. Listen, sometimes it's best to say nothing at all. Think it, maybe even have a private discussion about it with a friend and go, bloody hell, have you seen what they've said recently on vid? Or have you seen what they're doing? That's fine, but putting a bloody comment, and especially when you're really, really offensive, why would you do that? But generally speaking, I've actually been quite lucky over the years. Don't get me wrong, there's been the odd silly comment here and there, naturally, for having had a YouTube video or channel for so long. You're always going to get them. But the thing these days is not just do I not really get them, but in the past what I used to do, and I think this probably fueled the fire, but because I'm kind of one of those people, I always will be, but I manage to control it more these days. But I fight fire with fire, I really do. So in the past, that was a disastrous mix, because if someone left a comment for me, I was right down their neck, chewing their face off, like Splinter in the Turtles movie, where he chews on that bloke Shredder's neck, essentially. And that's what I would have done in the past. If someone said anything, I was on them straight away, like a red rag to a bull, and you just can't do that. Because on Twitter, that's what people want. On Facebook, on YouTube, that's what people want. Well, maybe not so much on Facebook, but certainly Twitter and YouTube. And they leave a reaction, and I've never understood it, to be honest. Like I say, it's one thing thinking it, it's another thing saying it. But just to give you a few of the examples I've had, just the ones that spring to mind, maybe there's better ones, maybe not, I'm not sure. But I talked about it actually a few months ago or last year. I was reciting a story, an anecdotal kind of nostalgic story of how I went to see a movie at UCI Cinemas just outside of Bournemouth. And whatever movie it was, I can't remember, I was talking about it, and someone in the comment section said, you didn't go see that movie, you're a liar, you didn't watch that movie. What a stupid thing to say, for all manner of reasons. But apparently the reason why I didn't go to that movie is because in my description of UCI Cinemas, I said something along the lines of, there were 3 booths or 4 booths. And he turned around and went, no, you didn't go. You're a liar because there were 5 booths. You said there was 4. So clearly you didn't go. You're a liar. You didn't watch that movie. I'm like, come on. What an absolute knobhead. So unless they were just being stupid, but they were full on in the comment section. A really big kind of paragraph about how I was lying on my video to get views and stuff. Absolutely ridiculous. So there was that. Someone accused me of making the COD file vids for views, Call of Duty vids for views. This was years ago. So ridiculous. It wasn't about views. Obviously, Call of Duty vids at the time used to get a lot of views, but that wasn't why I was doing it. I was doing it because I liked COD. Believe it or not, shock horror, I used to really enjoy COD. It wasn't fake. I used to play it a lot. And if I don't, mind saying so myself, got bloody good at it. I used to finish all the games on Veteran. I was, a dab hand online. I was pretty fast reflexes. Still got the odd reflexes. Once you got them, you never lose them. And my COD file vids, if you ever watched any, they weren't even about bloody Call of Duty. They were like mini vlogs where I talked for 10 minutes about things that are happening in life. Events in... And one of them, I think I talked about bloody North Korea. Or was that one of the Thursday Drive segments? Thursday Drive was a kind of a series I did for a while. Just very short kind of vlogs. And so it was never about Call of Duty. And I said to that person at the time, you're talking bollocks, mate. I'm not doing this for views at all. It was a really silly thing to say. I was accused of being Mr. Script. And having a script, and a person in the comment section went, yeah, I was talking to someone the other day, and he knows you as Mr. Script. He's given you that name because you've got a script for all your vids. Never had a script in my life. Never had a script. And even if I did, so what? What's wrong with, being prepared? It's a good thing, isn't it? Isn't it a good thing to have a script? Depending on how you're doing it, unless it looks as if, and you can tell as if you're reading it out, maybe that looks a bit rubbish then, doesn't it? It sounds rubbish too. But if you've got a script of things you want to talk about, or if you're reviewing a game or a movie or a record or a CD or whatever it is, isn't it a good thing to have a script sometimes? Rather than stuttering like I always do through my vids, maybe it is a good thing to have a script. So I didn't understand that accusation. That was just bizarre. Apart from that, P, those kind of things, silly little comments. On Twitter, there's been the odd one here and there. I put out, what was that one I put out quite a while ago? Just a few months back. Oh, that was it. I put out a tweet about how England, specifically, not the UK, how England was like united as a nation, even though I'm in America, because of the World Cup. And I went, oh, it's great to see England unite. It's great to see England united as a nation, England coming together, and they did the country really proud and all that kind of stuff. And then this one person replies, who in their profile, it was full of like anti-Brexit stuff. And he was like, oh, the country's anything but united. What are you talking about? We've got Brexit, we've got... It's like, oh, piss off, you knobhead. It was a random stranger as well. I didn't know who it was. I was talking about football. It was a contextual tweet. But he decided to come at it from the angle of Brexit and not being united at all. Like, what a moron. So you're always going to get that from random strange people. But again, did I say it at the start of the question? I can't remember. But I stand by the fact that I've always been very lucky. Clearly, there's the odd silly comment here and there. I don't really garner that kind of reaction from people. I think people who tend to watch my vids, for the most part, almost everybody, is very chilled out, very relaxed, very intelligent, friendly, and just pretty normal, irrespective of their age or background or anything. People are just very chilled out, and I like that. And then the last question from Murray, 247-365, because he's there whenever you want him, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Quick question for next time. You say you've not been back to the UK for 10 years. Aren't there things, I should say, or people you miss being able to see, I'm butchering this question, or do in the UK? Not sure Murray, I said I was going to stop doing that, could handle not visiting for 10 years. I normally go back 3 to 4 times a year, although, of course, it's easy and cheap for me to visit. Yeah, I think, Murray, you're in Holland, aren't you? I can't quite remember why you're in there. Is it just to do family reasons, wife, maybe just wanting to move there for work? I can't quite remember. Anyway, what was the question after all that? Yeah, not being back to the UK in 10 years. Yeah, a lot of people are constantly flabbergasted at this. So I got my visa to come to America in October of 2008, and I have not been to the UK since, well, being in America, which is, well, 10 years. It's ridiculous, isn't it, really? But it's a combination of things. It's money, it's finding the time, getting time off work, and not just that, but my wife as well, and the cost of it. And yeah, it's just... we just haven't done it. Do I want to do it? Well, yeah. Do I miss it? Yeah, I do miss it. But it's that thing of wherever you are, i.e. me, obviously in America, the longer you're somewhere, the more you become used to that. So 10 years, that's a decade, unbelievably. As if you didn't know 10 years was a decade. But it's a long time, and a lot has changed, I'm sure, in 10 whole years, an entire decade of not even stepping foot in the United Kingdom. So, yeah, I do want to go back. Of course I do. It's just finding the time. It's all the kind of, the things clicking into place, basically. And finding the time, the cost, wanting to do it, and the people that we're going to be visiting, making sure they're not going on holiday or anything. They've got to have the time off as well. There's no point me going back there, or us going back there, and them being on holiday and seeing them for like, 20 minutes every day for a week. So everything has to click into place. But I do plan on doing it. But I'm not sure when, to be honest, Murray. I really don't know. We've got family, like I say, coming at Christmas. This is on my wife's side, and my side of the family, probably next year. So that's kind of sorted for them coming here. So that, again, that's probably going to be another year going by. But there's no point me going there if they're coming here. So by the time I go back, it could be a few years. It really could. But I do want to. And it is difficult at times. But you just, as you'll know, Murray, living in Holland, as you'll know, you just get caught into that way of life, and the days turn into weeks, which turn into months, and they turn into years. Because you're just doing, in Holland, or me in America, what we were doing in the UK. You're going to work, you're watching television, you're living your life. Time flies. It really does. So I'll be back soon. I'm not sure when. Next couple of weeks or so, maybe next week, or the week after that, knowing me, or who knows. I don't know what it's going to be. It could be a pickup vid, it could be a music vid, it could be another vlog. But I will be back soon. And to all you who haven't made a video recently, get on it. Especially when it's coming to Christmas. It's a great time of the year, isn't it? To chill out, relax. It's cold outside. Get the videos recorded and made. And yeah, too many people aren't making vids, and that's a shame. Because if we all stop making vids, if we all did it, then there'll be nothing to watch. So you can make a video about anything. It doesn't have to be gaming related. Just make a vlog, a chat vid, have a cup of tea. Call it the bloody Friday Brew if you want. You can even borrow that title off me. It doesn't matter. get making vids. Anyway, until my next one, thanks for watching. See you later.